I will show you exactly what a thinking system is and how you use it to win more games. If you don't trust me, in the previous video, I have already shown you how I notice patterns and just understand my openings to the extent that I know that I get into positions that look like other openings, and I can use that knowledge to find the best moves and win easy games. Other chess teachers try to gatekeep this from you and they will just say, pay attention to the video, look at how I think, and just copy my style of thinking. But it's not that easy. You should understand why you do things and you should know what is even the purpose and what mistake am I avoiding. And that's why those videos don't actually work. You have to make the mistakes yourself, notice the mistakes, and then stop doing them by updating your own thinking system. So my opponent now find a way to win a pawn, but I don't think it's that bad. Although, if I kick your queen, you take this, I have to defend my rook, then you can take this, then I go here, then you take this. That might be a problem. So let's not do that. So in this position, I, for example, can move here, but I already know that I should look at checks because I have blundered a lot of checks. And so I updated my thinking system that I want to move something. Are there checks? Yes and yes. And bishop to g5 just blunders my queen. So I will not move there. I cannot move here. I can do this, but I know blocking my bishop will be probably quite bad. But I even think that breaking this rule is the lesser bad. So I can move to two things that don't blunder instantly. Maybe this is the best move because I want to be active. So I have already updated that in positions where my king is quite weak, I should leave my pieces active. So I can choose between one of these because that's an illegal move and this just blunders my queen. So I only have two options, or I block, but then you can take this. I will have to defend my rook, then you take this pawn, then you take this pawn, and going down 3 pawns is horrific. So that's a bad variation. So now we have this. My queen is hanging but defended. So I'm thinking that I first of all can kick your queen, because if you take my queen, I take your queen, and my structure is quite damaged, but you have to save your bishop, and I have an attack still. So I think that's fine. So if I attack your queen, if you take my queen, that's fine. So this is already something that I also have updated in my thinking system. And don't just calculate one variation, calculate everything. I attack the queen. If you take my queen, I take your queen, I'm doing great. So if I do this and you take the pawn, what's next? Then I can take the bishop. So that's nice. Now I will check for checks. So if I do this and you give a check, yeah, I cannot block the check while saving my queen. So this actually blunders my queen because you can give a check. I almost didn't notice that. And that is how you constantly update your thinking system to not blunder things. It's by making the mistakes yourself. So now I did give him this one pawn. I do have to be honest, but I mean, it's just the lesser evil. I couldn't really stop it, but now I can at least have some counterplays. So I will take this just to open up some lines and to have some activity. So probably something like my queen going to f2 in order to maybe put a bishop on f4 or just have this pressure. If he takes with the knight, I have to think because I don't really want to move this bishop, but maybe I'm forced to. Um, yeah, so my this is now under attack. If I were to move my queen, you take my bishop, I attack your queen, which has to move like here. I really want to keep the bishop. If I take this, you can just take, so that doesn't make sense. So I will just move like this. And I'm down a pawn, but I do have some activity. I think I'm scared of queenside castles. Yes. But again, I do get a lot of activity. So now again, I'm attacking this defended pawn, but 2 times. But again, anytime I take something, I have already updated in my thinking system that I should think about, can I get pinned? If I take this with the bishop, he can just pin my bishop. So if I were to take, you can pin my bishop, then I have to give a check, and I think I'm screwed. So he moved this knight. The purpose of moving the knight is to control the f square, which is very good from him. That's something that he also has updated in his thinking system, but I do have to say that he did blunder this pawn. So now I have to think about my queen leaves the side of my king. Is my king vulnerable? And I think the answer is no because of my activity. I do have a lot of activity from my pieces, and that's how I keep my king safe, even though I just let the queen leave my king behind. So maybe after take, you can still pin me to my king, and that might be very annoying. I do have check, you have to move. And I could take this, but then you take my bishop with a check. So that's probably bad news. I see a pawn move. Again, the first thing I think is that he weakened the squares next to it. That is the first thing I have in my thinking system right here. So I think about takes also to give this check, but I can get pinned, and I don't want that to happen. I could attack your rook, but I don't know if that makes sense. You might even just attack my bishop, and I don't know where it would go. Maybe here to defend my rook. That does make sense. And also, something I have in my thinking system is that anytime I make a move, I try to change move orders. So if I play g5, you attack me, and I go to e3, I might just play bishop e3 instantly. I also think about, can I attack this king? After you go here, I don't see how I attack you though. So maybe not. So I think I will attack your rook. You can attack my bishop, which is the first thing I have in my mind. But I think I will just slide back. And the thing that I gained from this is that you cannot develop your knight as easily. You just develop the knight. But that is a pin, so that should favor me, I believe. Can I not just attack you right now? And then if you pin me, I have check because you stopped this, but you can block the check with a check. Ew. That is disgusting. Hmm. If I do this to break open your king, because usually in open positions, breaking open the king is a very good move. I might also do no, 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 because the knight can just trade itself off. So I might be able to take. I think that's the move. So I want to take the f pawn, but my biggest problem, um, he might have blundered a little. I can retreat and defend my bishop so that if you take, I can take and damage your structure. So the first thing that I thought of is that I want to take this pawn, but I'm scared of the pin. So I should think about how do I make it that my piece cannot get pinned. And the way I can do that is by damaging the structure and having a pawn on f6 now. So now you can attack my bishop, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't do anything because I can just move it and it's not a pin because the pawn is in the way. So now my opponent is trying to be very aggressive, which is very good from him. This is a horrible pawn. So I am already thinking, how do I attack that pawn? So the way I want to attack that pawn is with a rook on the f file. So I will try to achieve a pawn there. He moved the bishop. I already think, what is the purpose? The purpose is just that he can put a knight there, but I'm not scared of knight there. So I might just put a rook here. He will probably give a check because that was the purpose of that move. If I move here, I blunder a fork. I always think about the checks. This is a fork, so I have to move here. I know that this is a correlation between a knight and a king, that he cannot attack me. And now I just want to activate my pieces. Again, I'm thinking about how can... Oh, he controls that square. That's how he can attack me. So this knight is actually quite annoying. So I'm thinking about how can I trade it off, but I think it's quite impossible. But I can attack your rook, and I don't think that achieves something for you. So I attack the rook. And the purpose of that move is that I want to just move my bishop around. Maybe put a rook here to just win this pawn, by the way, so that your knight isn't that strong anymore. And maybe the purpose is to trade off the bishop. That's also something that I might do. So this knight is quite bad. I know out of experience that usually you should improve your worst piece. So trading it off or improving it is a very good move. So something like knight to a4 is in my mind just to give a check, trade it off, or just improve it and go like this. That does absolutely nothing, I believe. Yeah, so I just go for my plan of trading off my knight. He can stop it, which is a good move. And now I think I control everything and I can just keep attacking stuff, keep improving my pieces, and try to win the endgame. The way of winning an endgame, especially when up only one pawn, is by making one of your pawns a passed pawn. By the way, I see that this is a pin, so if I can take this knight, you cannot actually take back. This knight is now undefended, technically speaking, because this is a pin. So I'm also thinking about something like takes, and then the knight isn't defended. I mean, only defended with the bishop. So maybe I might play something like bishop going to f5, because after take, I can take. And yes, you will damage my structure, but at least I traded off some pieces. Now my knight is quite bad, but it can go to the center. So I think my next move will be knight to c3. You will probably improve your rook, knight to c3, give a check, and if I stop you, you will be able to put pressure on a pinned piece, so that might be annoying. So I might just move my king first while stopping your infiltration. So now he did give me this option, but I don't think it's that good. I think I really want my knight to go here in order to attack some pieces. So you stop me, that's not bad. So I will again rotate my worst piece. I'm constantly trying to improve my worst piece. My worst piece by far is this knight. And I do have an extra a pawn. That's about it. So I want to improve my worst piece, which is my knight and my king. And that is because I know how to play and win endgames. So I will try to pacify his king while activating mine. So I will try to go to the center and I will try to activate my rook. So I don't really see a purpose of the rook here because the pawn is defended anyway. So I will just try to infiltrate with my rook and attack other stuff. Maybe the purpose was to play g4. I didn't think about that, to be fair. So let me infiltrate. He will probably just push the pawn. Maybe I should think about this being an issue, but I think it's fine. And now I think I can blockade this, attack your pawn, and you will not be able to defend it. And I should just be able to win a pawn and make a passed pawn like that. And when I have a passed pawn, I have my win condition. So you're not threatening to infiltrate. Um, I am low on time, so let me push this pawn because this rook is pinned. After take, I can take your rook. If you push, I have a rook to g6 to stop promotion. That's very, very important that you think about stopping the promotion. Now I can do this move, asking for a rook trade. You cannot take the rook trade, but you cannot deny the rook trade because this pawn is in the way. And it is in the way because you didn't actually improve this rook. This rook is very, very passive, and I exploited that. So let me show you what Stockfish thought about the game. So Stockfish says that this is quite a good game with 86% accuracy against 79% accuracy, but there are still a bit of mistakes. So that's basically a perfect game. I play well and I still have things to learn. So I will show you how I manipulate my thinking system in order to be a better chess player. So e4, just taking the center. e5, I develop a knight trying to take the center. He develops a piece controlling the center, and I develop a piece controlling the center. By the way, I want him to play knight to c6, trying to transpose into the copycat. This looks like this, and this. So we transpose. So that's why I play bishop to c4, but he goes for this d6 ID. And here the concept that I showed you in the previous video and that my subscribers already know is that you should and memorize and understand your openings. If I learned a bit more my openings, I should know that this is the move, just trying to take this bishop. That is usually the best move and one of the plans. So I should at least have considered it because I know and see the pattern from another opening, but I didn't. That's quite bad for me, to be fair. So I should know my openings a bit better and know the patterns of my openings a bit better so I can at least consider this move. I developed while solidifying my center, which is still fine. You develop, and now queen to h5 is the best move. And the way I find this is because that is the best move in this position. And the only difference is these two pawns move. So again, I should have found queen to h5 because I know my openings, but I didn't, to be fair. So that is why you memorize your openings. And now I move this pawn, and I should have had in my thinking system, I move this pawn, I should have looked at checks, and I should have seen that after take and take, check is quite annoying. And I move my king to f1. How do I know that f1 is the best move? Because first of all, I wanted to move it to e2, but then I should think in my thinking system about checks. My opponent has this check and I lose my queen. The other thing is that I want to move here, but then again, checks. So I move, you take, and I'm down 2 pawns. So by process of elimination, you find king to f1 quite easy if you know to look for checks. You attack my queen. So here I was very, very prone of playing g3. But after g3 again, think about checks. So I know in my thinking system, my piece is hanging, your piece is hanging. So can you give a check with your hanging piece to save your piece? And he can do that. So he gives a check with his hanging piece. Now his hanging piece is saved while my piece is still hanging. My only thing I can do is either block this check with my hanging piece or block the check while re-attacking your piece. But that's impossible. I cannot block this with the queen and with a bishop, so I will lose my queen. That is how a thinking system works. And if you blunder these things, that is how you should try and think about the game. Let's say in this position, you want to play g3, your opponent finds this or doesn't find it, but in the analysis you see, then you should think about, God damn, I blundered that. So how do I change my thinking so that I, in the same types of positions, have a different behavior? Because that is the definition of learning. It is having a different behavior in the same condition. So you should think I have a hanging piece, but I make his piece hanging. And then you should change your thinking system so that you think about checks. And he can give a check with his hanging piece. And that's how you find the move and change your behavior, in this condition I meant. So I move my queen best move and you take a pawn. So now I have in my thinking system, I'm down a pawn. So either I make a passed pawn or I have a checkmating attack. The way to find a checkmating attack is by opening up the center. So that is why I do. But the other way to find the checkmating attack is by activating my pieces. That's why the knight to d5 is good, because I can activate my queen, I activate my knight, and I will try to checkmate my opponent like that. But I open up the center. So it's a good concept, but it doesn't work here. And you get a knight into the center. Usually, if you can take something, but you improve your opponent's knight, it's bad. So that is the mistake in my thinking system. And here I blunder. So now I don't just think, oh no, I blundered. I will think about what did I blunder? Why didn't I see this? And how do I change my thinking system in order to not make the same blunder twice? The blunder I made is that knight to f3 works because I thought knight to f3, and I did think about it because I already have in my thinking system that I should always think about a knight jumping forward. So I thought about this, but I take and it's fine. I thought about this and I take, and I thought this was fine, but it's not, because I didn't calculate deep enough. So I should change in my thinking system. Never end your calculation on his turn. I should think one move further and I should think about checks. So I stopped my calculation here. I thought your bishop is hanging. You have to save your bishop, but you have checks. And I didn't calculate deep enough. I'm forced to block and get checkmated. That's it. So I stopped my calculation on my turn, which is on his turn, I meant, which is horrific, and I didn't think about the checks. That's what I should change in my thinking system in order to improve. But my opponent didn't see it. And now I activated the piece. So I'm attacking this. I activate my piece. I'm attacking this. And I prepare bishop to f4. That is how I found this. So I have a weak king, but at least I have active pieces and I have targets. So you move your knight. The thing is that I can take this, but anytime I take a pawn, I already have in my thinking system that I should think about, can I get pinned? The answer is yes. So here I am losing. So I shouldn't do that. So by the way, this looks like it works, but after takes, your rook is defended. If this knight wasn't here, your rook is undefended, and that would work, by the way. So that's just a random tactic I want to learn you the pattern of. If you get pinned, try to unpin yourself with a check, and then look at what happens, but it's defended, so it doesn't work. That's again something that you can think in your thinking system and applying your thinking system. So the next thing I know is that this is a free pawn, but anytime I take a pawn, especially on the flank, I think about, I get way less activity. Can he punish me having less activity? My queen is quite strong here, seeing a lot, and my queen is quite weak here. It just has a check. This is useless, and it has an okay diagonal, and it's defending my rook. But it's way less active than on f2, and it's not preparing the development of my bishop anytime this knight were to move. So I think about, can I get punished for that? The only way he can punish that is maybe by moving this knight, but then I can punish his king being this weak, take an extra pawn, and he cannot punish me with a knight on f4 because this is well defended. And actually, now he justifies my weak rook. My rook is very, very passive, but now it's fine because now it has a purpose. So that doesn't work. So I do decide to take this. Wow. I do decide to take this free pawn because he cannot punish my queen being passive, but that's something you have to think about in your system. If you take something making your pieces less active, can he punish me for being less active? And he can't. So he moves a pawn. And now the crucial move to find is a4. I didn't see that. So I will now think on how do I see this? And how I see this is, first of all, I have to see that my king is very, very safe. And this looks like an opposite color castle position. It's not, because I technically didn't castle, but it looks like an opposite color, opposite side castle position. And in an opposite color side castle position, usually the plan is to start a pawn storm. This is a pawn storm trying to attack your king, activate my rook, maybe rook lift, and try to activate my pieces because I want to break apart your pawn structure. Let's say you activate this, I push your pawns, and here the one difficult thing to see is that even if I waste 1, 2, 3 moves, you cannot punish my weak king on the king side with 3 moves because my bishop is active, my rook is defending this. My king is actually quite safe because your bishop is very passive because of this pawn. Your queen is very passive because it's on the side, and the only useful square is covered by my bishop. And even if you jump in this knight, I don't have to take this, so I can continue my plan. You have to defend, and then I can just sneak around and develop my bishop. And now I have a lot of activity actually. And you have to go for a counterplay, but it doesn't work. After check, 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 check. I have a maiden 7. So that's how you find that. And that I really try to now think about in this types of position. If I have something that looks like this and I am in the same condition, how do I change my behavior? And the way to change my behavior is by understanding that this looks like an opposite colored castle position and that my king is actually quite safe, even though it doesn't look like it. And anytime you jump this knight forward, my rook just gets a purpose and looks quite useful. So I can just start a pawn storm with the only pawn available. So this is a bad move, and taking is also not that good. And now my opponent, I take this because I think if you take back, now I can take this pawn because now you cannot pin my bishop to my king. Again, I take something, I think about, can you attack it? Can you pin me? But because of this pawn, it is not a pin anymore. But my opponent thought after take that he had this check, just winning back the bishop without damaging his structure, and he can defend this pawn. But that's not how it works because I can retreat the queen, and after take, 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 he has a damaged structure. So in this position, I go up 1 pawn, and your position, your pawn structure is bad. Something I learned you a couple of videos ago is that when you want to checkmate your opponent, pawn structure does not matter one bit. Open lines are more important than pawn structures. In positions that you want to go to an endgame, pawn structure is holy. So in this position, I am up 1 pawn, I have open lines, and his pawn structure is worse than mine. That tells me that I want to play an endgame where I'm up a pawn and tries to win that. How do you win that? I want to convert my extra pawn into a passed pawn. That's it. So that's what I try to do. He develops the knight, I don't blunder my bishop. He tries to do whatever that is. I move my king. Why do I move my king? In an endgame, you want an active king and active pieces, so I want to use the f1 square for my rook. He undevelops this bishop, so I already think about why would you do that? The plan is obviously because you want that square for your knight. So I just develop my rook because I don't really care. He gives me the check and I move. Again, best move going here. How do I find that? Because I know in this types of positions, you cannot attack my king. That is something that is in my thinking system. If you have 0 squares between a king and a knight, horizontally or vertically, the knight cannot check your king. If you have one between them diagonally, the knight cannot check the king. And if you have two between them in a horizontal or vertical position, the knight cannot check the king. That's a quick rule I have in my head. If I have low time and I don't want complications, I keep my king and a knight in these types of positions so that there are no checks. So you tried to attack this. I could have just slit my king, but I attacked the rook. You move the rook, and I rotate my bishop. So now I just practically developed my bishop. You tried to develop the rook, and this is a mistake. So I thought that this actually improved my knight and tried to trade off my worst piece. But anytime you move a knight to the edge, you should think about, do I have a clear purpose and can he stop me? He has king to c7, a very easy best move because now my knight cannot move forwards, and actually the best move is to go back. And the difference between this position and this position is that in this position his king moved to c7 and he has an extra move. So I just wasted two moves, which is horrific. So this is horrible, horrible move. And how I will not make that mistake in the future is by thinking I move a knight on the edge, but can I, within the first two moves, move it away with a clear purpose? That's what I will think anytime I move a knight to the edge. So this is horrific. You move your king, and now my knight is horrible. I do develop my rook, which is fantastic. This is a whatever move, and I move my bishop into the center, and I try to trade off some pieces. So now in this position where I trade some pieces, I will just play this endgame and I will be up a pawn. The way you win a position up a pawn is by making a passed pawn. So the clear way I can do that is by using my majority on the queen side to make a passed pawn, or I use the weakness of this pawn, win that pawn, and try to push this pawn into one passed pawn because I will have a king side majority. So you move your king, I develop my worst piece. You kick my worst piece out and actually going back and rotating in like this to the outpost. So again, I didn't find the best move, and I will think about how do I find the best move. And the way you find the best move here is because I just have an outpost. And I should always think about how can I put my knight into an outpost. And especially because this knight will shut down this file, which is fantastic for me, but I didn't see it. That's horrific. So I should move my knight back. It looks like I'm losing a lot of time, but I can just in two moves move to an outpost. So again, that goes back to what I teached you a couple of moves ago. Yes, I do move a knight on the edge, but on the next move, I will be able to reactivate it, attack a weakness. You will have to defend it. And in the time you waste defending that weakness, I can go to an outpost. I will pacify your king. I will pacify your rook by shutting the file. You cannot attack this knight with a pawn, which means it's an outpost. An outpost is a place you can put a piece, usually a minor piece, so knights or bishops, that it cannot get attacked, and hopefully it cannot be traded off. And again, if I get a knight here, I have this diagonal with one square between it, which means it's very difficult for him to trade off his knight for it. I didn't see it. I tried to trade off my knight like this. He activated his king, but he just did this and then that, which means that he just wasted the move. He could have gone to g7 instantly, but then I would have this check. You have to move, and then I would have the outpost. So that's debatable. You should have left your king on c7 to kick and waste time for my knight. So now I traded off. You take and take because this is a pin, by the way. So I'm threatening to take your knight, and you cannot take back because of take. So you have to take and take or move the knight. You activate your king, and I activate my king that you cannot infiltrate to a useful square. So I have this force field going, and you cannot infiltrate anywhere. Your king is just useless. So you just waste a move, which doesn't make sense. This is horrific. I tried to move to an open file, but obviously I just have a pinned pawn, which I can attack. So you have to move, then I can take. If you, by the way, take and take, I have a passed pawn. Again, remember, what did I say? My plan is to make a passed pawn. And this is the square, which is an endgame technique. And now this is the square. Now this is the square. So you cannot stop promotion already. And after I promote, I just win easily by checkmate or just winning your other pawns and checkmating like that. So I should have found this because I just see the pin. Especially when this happens, that inaccuracy, I can do it and it's even stronger. If you do this, I can take, you have to leave. I can already do this. After take and take, I again have this passed pawn. I can activate my king. You give a check, activate the king, leave, kick it, move here so that you don't have anything. After check, I can move. You move here, push the pawn, go back, push the pawn, blockade it, attack the rook, and now you have to sacrifice your rook for the pawn because otherwise I would promote again. And that's the power of a passed pawn, aka the win condition. And after take and take, I will be up a rook and a pawn. The way you win this is either by checkmating your opponent or by using your rook to make a passed pawn. So I would probably attack this, take this, trade it off just for simplicity, push my passed pawn, push the passed pawn. And that's how you win. Make a passed pawn and use your rook to make a passed pawn. Unless you can just checkmate your opponent, but otherwise you should just think about how do I win pawns to create a passed pawn and again have win conditions. Really the concept of win conditions you should use every single game. That is a very big tip I can give you. So my conversion wasn't that clean, but we did learn a lot. This was already a blunder. En passant, take. And the problem is that now my rook cannot stop your promotion because you moved your rook to h5 and I cannot take it on h6. That's a very big difference. That's beautiful. Yeah, so I actually blundered. My opponent didn't see it. And then I have this, you push, I take, and again, now if you move here, I will take, and I have a passed pawn. If you take my rook, I will take, and I will have a passed pawn. And if you move your rook, I will take a rook, and I will just use my 2-on-1 to create a passed pawn. And I have a rook to keep your king passive. That's also very nice. Here I can take, move my rook so that your king is very passive. If you do something here, I just do not care. I have a passed pawn here. I can make a passed pawn there. Probably I would do this. You have to move, move, move. I mean, let's say you take, I can take. You cannot cross. You have to move. I can push. You move. I push. You move. I promote. You move. And I mean, I just have a queen and a rook extra. So that's how you win by making win conditions. By the way, if you're actually scared in this position, let's say take, and we go for this whole sequence, just sack the rook for the pawn. Just sack, and now you have this easy checkmate. The way you win this, again, I want to change your thinking system. Always have your king and your queen in a knight's position. Think about if my queen was a knight, how do I give a check? So now I have the knight's opposition, so I move the king. Now again, the king has to move. If it moves here, I will think about knights giving a check. And if it moves here, I will think about knight giving a check. If it moves here, 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 be careful, knight giving a check is a stalemate. If the king is in the corner, that's the only thing that you should think in your thinking system. Don't do it. And then you can just pre-move your king getting closer and checkmating him like this. That was a mouse slip. So that is again how you checkmate, and I want you to change your thinking system in order to checkmate. I hope I change your thinking system and I'm worthy of your subscription. Other than that, I will see you in the next one, and I have a lot of videos like this if it's helped. Have a great day.